In 2018, I was ill. I had 13 brain tumors. There was a period of time where I couldn't work. My older daughter, who was 17 at the time, she got a job so that she could try to help support, the house, paying the bills, and she could feel it, that it wasn't enough. But she started selling, some weed on the side. Our house was raided by a military tank, like at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. They shot bullets into my bedroom where my other daughter was. And if she hadn't heard sounds, run into the bathroom, then they would have killed her because the bullet went straight into the bed where she was laying just like literally a minute before. And I thought, wow, I can't believe that I've put my children through this. And I swore to myself at that point that I would never, ever allow my children and myself to go through that kind of life again. So if money is what's needed to never have that kind of life again, I was like, well, it's time to get money.
You were living in Europe as a squatter and you face homelessness and struggle. What is it about your mindset that keeps you going?
Number one, I think it's...
Today's guest went from facing homelessness and serious health challenges as a single mother of two to becoming a wife and an entrepreneur, generating over $30,000 a month. I'm talking about a boss taking care of a family, multiple families. She turned the entrepreneurship journey into a spiritual journey and now owns multiple businesses, created diverse streams of income, courses, and authored several books. Today, we're going to learn and be inspired. Please welcome Raven Alvarez. Peace, sis.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, True.
Yeah, thank you for coming all the way from Florida. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here.
You've been through some things in life and in business that would break the average person. I really mean this from my mind and heart. When I think about resilience and thinking outside the box and being creative, I think about you. I mean, you've been through being robbed. You've been through molestation at a young age. You've been through businesses flopping. We want to hear more about those things. Challenges in life, marriage, children. Just, you've been through it all. How do you survive? Or how did you, I should say, survive and still be able to thrive under all of these circumstances? Because the average person, would probably quit on life or at least quit on their goals. What is it about your mindset that keeps you going and keeps you smiling through it all?
Well, that's a good question. And thank you for the, I definitely would consider myself a resilient person. Number one, I think it's important to have a sense of humor about life and not to take yourself too seriously because a lot of times we create roadblocks for ourselves when we think we're too anything, when we think we're too important, we think we're too special, when we think we're not special enough, when we think we're not good enough, we create these roadblocks for ourselves. And we have to just kind of be flexible and take each piece of life in the moment that it's in, not judging ourselves off something a future that we're reaching for that we haven't arrived at yet, just in the moment, just being in the moment of whatever's happening and really bringing a sense of humor to it. So I would say a sense of humor and a really spiritual background are what kept me, because there were times, that I almost gave up. There were times that I nearly unalived myself because the journey got too hard. For somebody who's like walked in real darkness and also come back out and found real light, it's much more, it's a much deeper journey. Money is a much deeper journey. Finance is a much deeper journey. Owning businesses is a much deeper journey than people realize. And the deeper your spirituality that you bring to it, just like the deeper spirituality you bring to your family, to your marriage, to anything you do, that's the resilience. That's where the resilience comes from, for sure.
Your story and experience is unique because you mesh the two, spirituality and business. And for me, I was trained, at least, that those two don't really go hand to hand. How did you find a place to merge them in a way where it's authentic? Because there's even, like, for example, I'm no Bible expert, don't want to claim to be that in no way, but there's even I remember a passage in the Bible that talks about how a rich man can't make it to heaven, or
Mm.
things like that.
Right.
Yeah, no expert in the Bible. I totally messed that up. But how did you find the space to make them both work? Your entrepreneur journey and your spiritual journey.
Mm. I'm spiritual first. That's always everything I do that comes along with the journey. I'm spiritual first. Everything is about the infinite, the divine, about understanding all of that and what it is. And I spent a great deal of the early part of my life figuring that out. From since I was a kid, I was like, I was never allowed to go anywhere, never allowed to do anything. I wasn't a party kid, didn't go out to the movies and things like that. So I would be at the library all the time, reading books about ghosts and aliens and witches and things like that, and just learning about asking questions that are about what in existence, the things that are not apparent to us, the things going beyond the things we're told. Even when you go to church, you're told one thing by the people up there at the front, but are they right? How, like, who are we? Who knows if they're right? And that goes with any religion. So I always go, and I believe in examining for self, and then that going to that deeper place inside and finding truths, and then discovering those truths outside of me, just made strength to the journey. And so those are places that I reach for whenever, when things are really good, or also when things are difficult.
Yeah, no,
So
I love that. How were you able to also make like the mental shift to get rid of the blockage to attract abundance in your life? Because I mean, you were living in Europe in as a squatter, and you face homelessness and the struggle.
yeah.
Usually what happens is that most people who experience tough times like that, they have this lack mentality.
Yeah.
How were you able to just overcome that lack mentality and start attracting abundance in your life?
It is a really long, hard journey. It's not easy. I think it's unfortunate that these days, because of how prevalent social media is, little clips of people making these advances, people think that advances happen in little clips and can happen overnight, and they don't. They're a lot of times painful, a lot of times bitter. A lot of times the scariest place that people don't want to go is inside their own head, inside their own heart. They don't want to face the darkness they have. They don't want to address the issues they have that are causing blockages. And one thing about me is I've never ever been afraid to question myself. Just like I was the same way that I was always about the universe, this like unrelenting drive to discover the truth of the universe. I have an unrelenting drive to discover the truth inside me as well. So every time that I uncover something, or I come upon something that doesn't seem to match truth. So if my truth that I want to live is that I want to be a millionaire, for example, and my habits and my behaviors are not producing a millionaire outcome, I have to realize that something inside of me is the block. Something inside of me is not producing that outcome. So what is it? So that means going inside of myself and actually looking for what that is, with honestly and with courage.
So many people would have like a victim mentality. They would blame their past, they would blame the system, they would blame the economy. And you mentioned looking at yourself. So what would you say to that?
The economy and the government and the people around us and our families, they're always going to be whatever they are. And we have to coexist with the things that are happening. We can understand that certain things are happening in the world. And if the government says go right, we don't have to go right with them. We can go left. All of those are things of personal choice. All of that is about choice. That's choice. We can always choose to agree with what's being done and agree with what's being said, or we can choose to oppose it just in order to understand it. And both of those can be ways of understanding it. If we follow along with whatever's told, yes, sir, and do everything what's been told, and we come to a place where our life still doesn't feel right, we can say, okay, well, something's off here. There's something off between what I'm being told and the outcome that I'm getting. So what is it? Is it their fault? And a lot of times people do examine first what's outside of them, because that's the first thing we could see. The intangible is the thing inside. And that's a lot of times the last place that we go inside and look. But that all, in order to understand the whole thing, we have to know the outside and the inside as well.
I love the fact that you say we have to exist with it all, and still be courageous and still pursue whatever's inside of us.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like almost like it's both.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other.
Exactly.
Yeah. In life and business, you as a resilient person, what would you say is the most challenging thing you faced in both?
Oof.
And I know business is also your part of your life.
Yeah, business is. I would say, well, the most challenging in life in general, marriage. Marriage is absolutely, without a doubt, the journey that I spent in my life going within, figuring myself out, finding a way to coexist with all of the things in life, and understanding my path and my way, and then honing my path and my way. And then having to flip all that on its head because I now have to take who I am, the identity that I've solidified in myself, and then mesh that with another human who has also done the same thing, and then find a way to coexist. And it's one thing to talk about coexisting. I can coexist with Trump, Biden. I don't care. I'm still going to live regardless of who's there doing whatever. I'm still going to coexist, red, blue, up, down, all the things outside of me. But the closer those things get to us, the harder it becomes, because when you feel like somebody actually may interfere with your journey or oppose your journey in some way, it becomes really challenging. And so the biggest challenge for me is that I figured out a way to do it, and I know what I'm doing. And then I have to unravel all that in order to allow somebody else to be in my personal space and allow their way of doing it too. And recognize that there isn't a right way to do things. There's just my way to do things. And then there's also more other people's way of doing things.
Yeah.
And that is extremely challenging.
Yeah, definitely. As a married man, I can definitely co-sign that. I remember a long time ago, we did like a marriage seminar, and an elder came and he said that his marriage was like his martial arts. Like it's a personal development program within itself.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely. I could definitely co-sign that.
Yeah.
How do you balance? You're a boss, you're a wife, you're a mother, you have a personal life. So many people struggle with work-life balance. How do you manage everything?
Well, first of all, I'll say I have no personal life.
That's real.
That's one off the list.
Yeah, that's the raw success. Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. That's the difference, is that I'm actually okay with that. I have a path. My path is the path of the millionaire. And I'm climbing that path. I'm doing that. And so I recognize that there are sacrifices. No matter what we choose, there are always sacrifices in it. And I was willing to sacrifice the personal life. I was even willing to sacrifice having marital struggles, because, of course, running businesses, having a partner and trying to run a business is really difficult. Having a business and trying to give time to your children is really difficult. And I recognize that there would be sacrifices, but the payoff and the reward is so much greater for me, because I get to be my complete self. I get to be the totality of who Raven is. And that's priceless to me. And then at the end of it all, I also get the material reward, so that the part of me that wants to do good things in the world, that wants to give back to the world, I want to be able to have enough to be able to give back to the world at the level of how deep I feel it. I can't give back to the world broke. I can give back a smile. I can give back kind things. I can give back creativity, but I can't give back at the level that's required. Like, we live in a world where, material exchange is required. Mm-hmm. And if I want to go build a pipeline in Kenya so that a village can have water, I can't do that with a limited income, with limited resources. So I'm developing resources so that I am able to go and open my heart to whoever and wherever in the world that I want to be able to share myself.
Yeah. What has been the biggest mindset shift for you?
I would say that realizing that I'm worth it. Yeah, that was the hardest. The biggest money block that I've come across. And when I say money block, I'm still talking about money as a spiritual journey. So like, if I use the word money and I'm talking about that, don't take it in the smallest meaning. Money taught me that I didn't feel like I was worth it, because the level of what we have is the level that we feel that we're worth. And it was I'm constantly going into dark places inside of myself and realizing there's another part of me that still is carrying the wound of that.
Yeah, wow.
And so you discover it, and when you think you have it all figured out, and you're like, oh, I finally figured it out, I uncovered it, I got it. Then you go through life, and then all of a sudden, boom, you bump into another place from inside of yourself where you didn't have it all figured out, and you have to go back in there and like start the journey all over again from a new position. And yeah, it's a continual, it's a lifelong process. It's permanent.
So what was the defining moment for you?
That was in 2018. I could still remember. Uh, that year I was very ill. 2017, I started to get ill, but in 2018, I was ill. I had 13 brain tumors. I couldn't work. There was a period of time where I couldn't work because the tumors were so bad, or the pain was so bad that I would just literally just lay in bed, and any sound, any light would just bother me so badly that I just couldn't move. Um, we were at that point living off our savings, which were running out. I was a single mom still at the time, and my daughter, my older daughter, who was 17 at the time, had to, well, she didn't have to. I mean, she got a job so that she could try to help support, the house, paying the bills. And at 17, there are not that many options. She was working at the Gap at limited, a few hours a week, and not with little limited money that, that they give. And it wasn't enough. And she could feel it, that it wasn't enough. And I didn't, of course, tell her that it wasn't enough, but she could feel it. It just wasn't moving the needle for what we needed in our family. And, I hope this isn't too much information to tell to the public, but she started selling, some weed on the side. And she unfortunately was, somebody snitched, about it. She ended up selling weed to an undercover, and our house was raided. And I don't know what they were told by the undercover or whatever, but our house was raided by a military tank, like at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. The house was raided. They came in with AK-47s. I had just left the house, and they were watching me, and I didn't, we didn't, of course, know this at the time, but they watched me. They waited until I left the house. They shot bullets into my bedroom where my other daughter was. And if she hadn't heard sounds, run into the bathroom, and hidden in the shower, then they would have killed her, because the bullet went straight into the bed where she was laying just like literally a minute before. And my daughter who was selling weed, they dragged her out of the house. They forced her face down on the concrete, put guns in her back. They had dogs over here, and it was really violent, And so we just had to sit outside, and this is in a quiet neighborhood on a Saturday morning, and we just had to sit outside in handcuffs on our lawn while this military tank and this massive amount of police destroyed our house, ripped the walls, destroyed everything, looking for drugs, and weapons, apparently, I guess, because I don't know how they were that violent. But anyhow, they found like half a gram of weed. Like, it was just crazy, because she was just moving, these little amounts. But, sitting there, the absolute powerlessness and humiliation, and the fact that they shot a bullet into and could have killed my daughter for something like that. And we weren't in that situation because we were trying to, come up in some kind of way. We were just trying to get our bills paid. And I thought, wow, I can't believe that I've put my children through this, that this is our human experience right now, that we're like the shame of the neighborhood. And it was such an awful, horrible, horrible feeling. And it's even worse because with the amount of stuff I know, I've been in college, I have a bunch of degrees, I've done all kinds of stuff. And with everything that I had, somehow I just couldn't build the life that I wanted to for these girls. And it was really devastating. It was like an emotional, it was just like a bottoming out. It was like a complete ego bottoming out. Like, I was like, I need to go somewhere else from here because this isn't it. And I swore to myself at that point that I would never, ever allow my children and myself to go through that kind of life again. So if money is what's needed to never have that kind of life again, I was like, well, it's time to get money, because I used to believe in the separation of money and spirit as well. It took a journey to realize that those are two sides of the same coin, that they're part of the same thing. And so we lost our home, after the raid. I had the option basically to renew our lease and to get all that stuff cleaned up, or to pay my daughter's, to get her a fantastic lawyer and pay her court fees and everything like that. And we got a fantastic lawyer, but we lost our home. So my daughters had to go, they had to go live with family members, and I was staying with my mom, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. Like I didn't know. I was just recovering from I healed the brain tumors. I had 13 brain tumors. I healed all the brain tumors with no medication. And during the time when I was laying in the bed, when I finally could hear sound again, all I did was play Tony Robbins, E.T. the hip hop preacher, and just play motivational stuff just all day. I would just put something on YouTube and I would just let it run all day with these motivational things talking about your greatness, about reaching your greatness, finding your greatness. And that was literally all I could do. I couldn't even get up out of bed. I couldn't even open my eyes or turn on the light in the room. And that's all I did all day long. And so it was like a perfect timing for life to go that way, because it was like I had just laid down and spent weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks with all those sounds in my head, all those sounds of inspiration and motivation and everything like that. So it was like fresh in me, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna do something. Like this isn't the end for us. I got to do something new here. And so at my mom's house, didn't know what to do next, but I knew that with the stuff that I had learned about like abundance, real abundance is when you give it away, and we hear that, but we don't really understand it. You have to have a deep level of fearlessness to be able to give away everything you have, because most of the time we're just programmed to hold it because we're afraid no more is coming. And so telling the universe, I believe so much that more is coming that I'm fine with giving this away. So I took all the stuff I had at that time. I had authored a few books. I was giving away books. I was doing online classes for free, teaching people yoga. And I told people, I remember one of the first videos I did right there from my mom's living room floor. I said, I'm starting a money journey today. And I started this prosperity meditation. This is something that I was taught in yoga school when I was there. And I did the prosperity meditation on this live video, and I did a yoga set. And then afterward, I had this deep inspiration just talking about money, about like ancestral money here in the United States, about the journey of different classes and races of people and the journey that they've been through, about the effort that we need to put in to overcome our lineage, our family stories of poverty, of mindset. And I just went in, going on the shift. And I basically just took people on the journey with me. And I started giving it away. And soon people were finding me, hey, I heard you had a book, and can you send me a copy? And people were paying for the book. And the next thing, people were asking, oh, where do you have these classes? How much do your classes? You're trying to give the classes for free? No, I refuse to accept it for free. I got too much value out of that. I need to send you money. Where can I send money to you? And then the money started to flow. And then all the skills that I had built from years before, when I was playing around with websites, when I didn't know who to go build a website, when I had the body products business, I started doing websites again. And the first person that I had do a website, that I did a website for her, I made more money doing that one website for her that just took me hours, maybe like 5 hours to design this website. And it was more than I had made in a week of the last job that I had. And I thought, okay, yeah, I'm onto something here. I'm onto something. So I'm just going to use whatever talents, because that was the defining moment about when you realize you can't just do one thing. One thing might get you one income, but if you do body products and web design and counseling and health coaching and things like that. So I just did everything that I am good at, every skill I have. Hey, do you need this? And I just went to people and just put the skills that I have out there, just gave away the knowledge, just talked about it, just talked about health, until people came to me, hey, you seem like you really know a lot about health. I have this issue going on. Can you help me? And then I would set up structured meetings with them and work through. And I have a huge success rate. I've worked with people with cancer, with people with fibroids, with people with diabetes, and had people reverse those things. I don't want to say too much, but I've helped people reverse many things that they did not think were reversible.
Man, I can tell you and thank you for sharing, being so real, again, raw. It's just... for me, on this angle and having a bird's eye view, as I like to say, I can see how all of that had to happen. And I don't mean to be insensitive, because that must have been super scary for you, almost losing a child, having a raid and arrest and all of that.
Yeah.
But that experience is what allowed this blessing here in front of us, who provides for families, because you have employees, to exist. So it's mind blowing for me to see how all of those dots connect. And I appreciate you mentioning the motivational stuff, because I listen to motivational stuff as well.
Yeah.
And there are people that, why you listen to that stuff?
No,
You know what I'm
it's
saying?
powerful.
Like
It's powerful.
right.
The
right.
shift began with those things.
Wow.
I completely attribute Tony Robbins and E.T. the hip hop preacher, because those are the only two. I had never even heard of them. I found one by accident, and it's those higher self being guided. Like, I don't even know what I was looking for on YouTube. I'd never heard of motivational speakers, and I found something, and I just whatever the topic of it was, I was like, that's let me hear that. And it just played, and every day I would just that was my diet. I would just eat, drink, because I didn't know where these brain tumors were going to take me. 13, they were like, there's 13 lesions in your brain. We don't know what that's going to mean for you, what that's going to turn into. And they wanted to do all kinds of testing on me and pull spinal fluid out of me and things like that. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to live. I didn't know what was going to happen. And rather than go down that route, I thought there must be some way to be well. And I started it more for that. I just wanted to be well.
And I love how it started from the mind and what you were
Exactly.
consuming. And definitely, I think the most important thing to also highlight is that you didn't stay stuck. You took action.
Yeah.
So that's the piece that people are missing, which is why they think that quote unquote motivation doesn't work.
Right.
It's like, no, you got to follow it up with action eventually. Of course.
Exactly. Motivation is the seed. There has to be
It's
everything.
the preparation. It's like, for martial arts, it's the training.
Exactly.
Yeah, eventually you got to step in the ring.
Right.
Indeed. So, many people have not gotten the opportunity to rub shoulders with millionaires like you have. Do you see a difference in how they think, and let's say how like a middle class person thinks? Is there a difference or a way of being that's difference between the two classes?
I would say the main differences are a level of comfortability with self. There's a huge, I don't even know the right word to put it. It's just that encompasses it. Just being comfortable within themselves, comfortable within themselves to a level, because a lot of people, this concept we have of the filthy rich and the dirty rich, and that the rich are horrible and bad. Of course, there are negative people everywhere at every level of existence, but people with wealth, people who know that they can create, they're creators. They know that they can create their reality. And so when somebody knows they can create their reality and that you can't take that reality away from them, they're a lot more comfortable and a lot more gracious with their personal space than people who have a different mindset, where they feel like, okay, there's only a limited amount of resources. It's either you or me. I'm going to have to compete against you in order to have what I have. And that's really false, because there actually is enough for all of us. The abundance mindset really is. And I feel that people who are already wealthy, or people who've been wealthy for long enough, are at a place where they're comfortable. And even we can even see this in the things like the clothes. After you already are wealthy and there's no impressing people and trying to climb and trying to show, you can be comfortable with the sweatshirt and the New Balances, or however, where somebody who's on the climb, or who's more toward, I don't want to call it poor, but with a more poor mindset. Sometimes a poor mindset is cleverly disguised behind expensive clothing, behind expensive material goods. And what they're really hiding, and what they're really saying is, I don't want anybody to see the poor that I really am. So let me cover it up. Let me prove to them what I have. And then so they put all these designer things and stuff like that to prove what they have. And it's not proving anything. It's really just showing the blockages. Now at this point in my journey, and money being spiritual, I see it just looks like blockages to me. And you can tell who's wearing it because they love it, and you can tell who's wearing it because they're trying to prove something with it.
Yeah,
it's a big difference.
It's interesting you use the word gracious as a description, because of one of my businesses, I've definitely spent some time with some affluent people who made a certain amount of money and whatnot. And what I realized is, when I was young, I had this impression that millionaires and rich people were these stuck-up jerks, really, gatekeepers. And I realized that they were actually very generous.
Yes.
Generous with their time, generous with information.
Yes.
Very hospitable.
Yes.
And, I don't know what they're doing when I'm not there, obviously. But I know when I was in the presence, I definitely, felt I had a good experience. Right. And so I remember having to shift that, like, oh, okay, wait, so they're not up, stuck up jerks like I thought they would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. What so with all you've been through, when you answered that question, right? I was like, wow, I shouldn't mention anything dealing with the physical because I know, with your businesses, you face some challenges. You've had one of your cars stolen, so you're a serial entrepreneur, so you have multiple streams, businesses and whatnot. You had one of your cars stolen. You had snakes in your business who you took some money from. You had all these things happen.
Yeah.
And your answer about the most challenging thing was really something about the inner self and not any of that physical stuff.
Yeah.
So I was really amazed by that.
Yeah.
How do you release trauma and stress? Because you're in a high stressful, environment. You have employees, you have businesses and everything like that. And so many people struggle with managing stress.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What tips can you offer us to manage stress?
First of all, I think physical health is the number one priority. And I didn't catch it at the beginning of my money journey, but I noticed that all millionaire people who are on the climb and who are in that path already, they have a very serious physical routine. So they work out, they eat well, they're careful about their sleep and these kind of things. And when you're in the middle of trying to build a business, of course, sometimes it's not always possible to eat perfectly and get enough sleep and things like that. But those kind of things are the most important, foundationally building the body and making the body ready to be able to endure, because stress is not just mental, it's also physical. So the capacity of our nerve endings to literally handle stress, the capacity of our digestive system to handle stress becomes much greater when we're getting enough rest, when we take pause, when we take time out from things. There are a few good habits, things like working for an hour, taking a 5-minute break, just something like that. And this is something that I almost never incorporate, but I do know that that's what we're supposed to do, because when I do it, I feel much better. It's a huge difference.
Yeah. So. When I did some research on you, I definitely noticed that you do a lot of meditating also.
Yes.
I know for me, that's one of the things that I do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was going to be the second thing that I said. So making sure that the physical is as intact as possible is super important. But then the most important is having the time to actually withdraw, be alone, be away from others, get some silence, and go into an inner place, because that's a place where we get to examine what's actually happened to us, how we process what's going on with us, what actually happened, and how we feel about things. I had a business partner steal $65,000 of the working capital from our business, quit the business 3 days before the $15,000 rent was due, and leave me with $148 in the bank, and then just took off with all of the money, and he used the money for another business. And there was nothing to do but figure out how to keep going. The option was quit or keep going. And the amount of sweat and tears that I put into the business at that point, I was absolutely not quitting. I'm not a quitter anyway. I always find a way to make things happen. So I didn't even have time to stop. I think if I had paused and if I had just focused on him and been angry at him and hating on him, I didn't even want to devote enough energy to hating him and being angry at him, because that would have taken away from the resources, the mental resources and the emotional resources I needed to figure out how to keep the business running. So I just put him aside and thought about and spent all my time and energy focused on what did the business need, who could I reach out to, what kind of resources did I have, what credit could I leverage, and figuring out those things. And he's still on a back burner. I have other people who hate him actively for me, but I just couldn't take myself into that space. And that's meditation. That's years of meditation. I've been a priestess for many years. I was a yoga teacher for many years, and I've learned how to deactivate stress inside the body just from years of practicing breathing, powerful breath work. There are powers just with the power of the breath, just with the power of stillness, we can release a lot of things that we think are stuck and things that are in our way. And we realize if we give ourselves that pause and reframe from in here, we can shift and get done out there what needs to get done.
Yeah. So as a serial entrepreneur, is it better to start your own business or to purchase a business?
It is absolutely, without a doubt, better to purchase a business. It's the difference between taking all of your time, all of your energy, and focusing all of that in research, in all the various aspects, and getting something where somebody took care of all those steps for you, put the systems in place in order to make the business run, and is generally looking to leave the business most often due to retirement. We're in a generation where the boomers have purchased businesses, they've run businesses for years and years, and now their children don't want their businesses because they have their own businesses. They have their own goals and dreams in life, so they don't necessarily want to inherit whatever mom or dad built and created. So they have nobody to pass it to. So they need to pass it to somebody who actually will pick up the passion that they have about that and carry it on. So rather than focusing your time and attention on figuring out building codes and figuring out employees and figuring out all of these tiny details that are necessary to run a business, you to spend your time figuring out how to connect with the people who own these businesses already, working out ways to creatively buy the businesses from them, because you don't need to even necessarily need to be wealthy to buy a business. A lot of people think that you need to be wealthy to buy a business. And as a person who started out with no money, when I got into the education of buying businesses, I can absolutely say that focusing your time and attention on just getting the knowledge about how to connect with somebody, you can absolutely go in and have a creative way to buy a business. And it's so much easier. It's so much easier than doing it from the ground up.
Wow, it's interesting. It's like you were reading my mind, because as I was listening, I was thinking to myself like, wow, but I'm not in a position to purchase a whole business. And so I was going to ask you, what advice or what mindset or strategy would you offer someone, who wants to consider buying a business, but they don't have the capital?
So I would suggest for somebody with a limited amount of capital, the first thing you're going to want to do is to get the education. The education is the most important aspect. So for example, if somebody had $2,000 and said like, all I have is $2,000, I can't buy a business with that. The most important thing to do is to get a coach, have a coach teach you the creative strategies to buy a business, and then go and buy the business without having to put any money. Leveraging credit is the best way to buy businesses, leveraging other people who have money. And you can take your talents and your skills and your knowledge and go and trade them. So you can say like, you might have money, but I have the knowledge and skills of how to buy a business. So let's put it together. You put in the money, I'll put in the skills, I'll run the business, and then we can work together. So there are ways like that. Some people have family members that they can borrow money from. Some people have good credit. Even if your credit is relatively decent, then there's still a way to get a business purchased.
Wow,
There are ways to get it done.
It reminds me of when I've heard that the best investment someone can make is into themselves, is into wisdom, knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What would you say is the best business to purchase?
So there's no right answer to that. Because it depends. I think it's really important to buy businesses that you have some degree of connection and passion for, because number one, you're going to be bringing your intelligence, your talent, your skill in that industry into the business. But you also, at the times when it does get hard, you're going to still care about what it is you're doing. If you buy a business just to have a business, just to have an income, when it gets difficult, when it gets hard, when there's challenges that there are going to be, you're going to want to give up. If you love what you do, you're going to want to stay in it. So I think it's more important. So, they have the, buy a laundromat, buy a recession-proof business. And that kind of stuff is important. It is important, but I would say to look for a blend of those two. Look for a blend of something that you're passionate about, but that also may be recession-proof if possible. But don't put recession-proof as the first thing. Always go for the passion of the business first. That's my suggestion.
And how were you able to build? Well, when you purchase these businesses, right? How are you able to keep them sustainable and profitable?
There's a lot to that. The most important thing, and it's interesting because the same thing that is important for us to be able to conquer life is the same thing we need to conquer business. So it's about the resilience again. There are times when you may need to sell off assets in a business that you don't want to sell off, but if you remove those assets and then you sell them, you get your funding, and then you leverage that in order to make the business grow or make the business continue. Which are some of the things that I had to do after the business partner stole the money and quit the business. You have to examine people carefully, make sure that you have the right people on your team, putting systems in place. It's really, really important to get. And again, I go back to the education, getting good training. And if I would it be okay if I just mentioned my teacher's name?
Please.
Yeah, please. I'd like to just shout out to Business Builder Institute. for being that similar type of the similar type of personality like me. The company is started by a man who figured out his way, who was in corporate America, jumped off the corporate ladder, learned how to buy businesses, and was like, wow, this knowledge is too good. I can't hold this to myself. So he set up a community, and for far, far less than many of these, scam coaches out here and these YouTube University coaches are charging, created a platform where people could actually learn and had weekly meetings and all sorts of things going on, and really gave to the people. And for the people like me who were really about it, who really wanted to know, who really wanted to soak it up, some people are serial students and they'll just stay in there and just keep on trying to learn one more chapter. But I learned from the first week. I jumped in. There was a challenge in the first week. Like, hey, do your 5-day challenge. I was like, look, I haven't even watched 2 training videos yet, but I see there's a 5-day challenge over there. I'm going to take the challenge. And if I mess it up, I'm still going to be learning along the way. So I jumped in and did that. But thankfully, giving energy to a mentor that was that good was the difference between, because now I know how to pivot. Yeah. So it's about the resilience. You cannot succeed in business if you don't know how to pivot, because challenges come in business no matter what. There are employees who steal, there are partners who fall out, there's all kinds of things going on, and you have to be able to roll with the flow of what's going on. And if you're rigid and stuck in your way of how you want those things of where you see the business or how you want things to get done, sometimes it turns out differently. But you have to roll with it when it's turning out differently. And then you can work until you have it stabilized, and then you get it back on track, and then you take it in the direction that you want. Sometimes we have to build the train tracks while the train is running.
Wow.
That's what I've learned how to do well.
That mentorship piece, man, is so crucial. And I see it's so consistent in different stories of successful people. And I think about our community and how, there's so many broken homes. And so already we're starting with a lack of mentorship, because essentially your parents are like your first mentors, right? Teach you about life. And I think that that's important. What would you say to people who don't have a mentor? What can they do?
There's always a mentor somewhere. There are mentors in books. There's libraries if you can't. There's books online. There's always ways. There are too many opportunities to get a good mentor now, and then just continue. And each mentor will lead you to the next one. Each teacher will lead you to the next teacher. But you're led to that teacher when you really digest what's being given, not just taking the things and being able to spew them back out or being able to parrot what's being said, but really taking in the knowledge, activating it, using it. And then as you start to use it, then the very next mentor will come along. That's everybody I know has, like, that seems to be the journey of the mentorship. What is the teacher, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's really a true adage.
So it's when someone buys a business, to me, that's such a outside the box way to think, you know what I mean? So I appreciate you bringing that wisdom to us. So I bought a business. What's day one like? What's the next step?
So the most important thing in the beginning of a business is stability. So the first thing to do is nothing. A lot of people make the mistake, the people who have gone into business, especially people who don't have good mentorship when they go in. They say, oh, well, I wanted the business to do this and I wanted to do that. And they go in and they start trying to make structural changes immediately. And the most important thing to do, and this is something that I've actually heard from you, actually in Kabbalah, the pause. The most important thing to do is go in and not try to impose what it is that you think, what you want, is to pause and observe and to give that time space to understand the flow of everything. Because no matter what we learn on paper, no matter how many risks we mitigate by doing the financial due diligence, we can never understand the daily ins and outs of a business. So it's that moment of going in and standing by, for example, with me with a med spa, I need to go in there and be behind the counter. I need to see how the foot traffic moves, how many people walk in per day, where the sponges are kept so that when they can't, the cleaning, like things that are about small details of efficiency that make a business run. Because I can put a whole platform down on paper, but then when I go in and have everybody try to implement it, it can be awkward and backward. And so it's about not imposing. So the very first steps are to do nothing, to take the business, to immediately organize the finances so that there is money being set aside for the business growth, because those are the two things that people don't do. That's the biggest mistake why businesses fail, is that people do not organize the amount of money needed for the business to grow and expand, and they don't start putting that aside. They start saying, oh, the business is making this much, this is the expenses, this is the revenue, these are the expenses, the rest of that is in my pocket. And all businesses will fail eventually if people do that. So there always has to be an amount built in, whether it's 10%, or each business is different, each field is different. So that depends. But setting aside an amount for the business to grow, and then using as little as possible for personal, because anything that's pulled aside can also be used to expand a business, buy another business somewhere else. So buy a business that can support that business. For example, I have a med spa. I have a med spa industry. If I want to buy a business that sells the med spa supplies, or I want to buy an esthetician school so that I can hire nail salon nail techs right out of the school that I own, that's different than having to go somewhere and having to outsource those types of things. So setting aside money in the business, most important thing. Pause, observe, and put money aside.
The way you think, it's so different than like an employee mentality. How, or what is the difference, or what did you shift? Because you're talking about like, okay, I'm in this spot. It's a beauty supply. Let me buy the beauty supplier. Like that's not typical thinking. It's what I'm getting at, right? So what I want to know, and what I want the world to know, is what's that mindset? Where does it come from? That's like, I know you didn't learn it in school. So what is it? Where is it? And how did you develop it?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question, but I don't even know if I know the answer. I think it's literally just experience. I think those are all the mistakes. That's all the falling. Even the wisdom I'm saying about observing and pausing with the business, not doing anything to change it. All of those things are mistakes that I've made. It's all the nuances. It's the details, that we have to do them in order to feel and know. And also the same thing, getting a great mentor, because they do all those mistakes, and then they tell you, hey, these are the mistakes you're going to come up against. Don't do this, and each generation of mentorship and of learning, we have less problems in the way.
That's powerful. I want you to take this time, because we've been speaking about some of your businesses and whatnot, but really take this time. I want people to know, like, take this time to flex who you are, some of the businesses you own, and what your brand is and whatnot. Yeah, let us know who you are and what your brands are.
Okay. Well, so I've been on a pretty serious entrepreneur journey since 2012. I had a business when my daughters were young. I couldn't find any natural products, like natural lotions and soaps and things like that didn't have crazy chemicals and things like that at that time. So I just decided to make my own brand. So I started looking up recipes and making shampoos and making soaps and making bath body butters and things like that. And that was the first business. I didn't have anywhere to market it, so I practiced making my own website, and then I learned how to do web design, and so I just every aspect of the business I figured it out myself. It was like I was saying, building the train tracks as you're going along, learning how to connect with people, communicate with people, network with people, and get your products in front of the right eyes. So that was how I started out in the entrepreneur world. But then going forward, over the past years, I've had Airbnbs. I've had 3 Airbnbs. I had a Turo business, put the 2 businesses together. Those are people, and again, people think, because they a lot of times see things on YouTube, oh, wow, that looks like something I can do. And then they think it's easy because they're just getting clips. And it's great to jump in with what you know, but it's good to have a balance with making sure you understand what you know, understanding all the fine print, all the laws in the area. Like when we had Airbnbs, the first Airbnb we had was in Disney and Celebration. Never bothered to find out that Celebration has a ban on Airbnbs. So we just ran it, and it was hugely successful. Like we were making money hand over fist. Until Disney shut us down. And, so things like that. The Turo business, we were doing really well with the Turo business. We got one luxury car. I got another luxury car, and one of the cars got stolen. And it took us a year to recover the vehicle. So we went through all kinds of process. It's still boom, 30,000 sunk, on that situation. And then more Airbnbs. We had some good Airbnbs in Miami, and it's great. They're great, running them. And each level of business that you go to, you start finding the cracks in the armor, and it's at that point you decide, like, is this worth it for me? We were driving from Fort Lauderdale to Miami every day, every time somebody's having a check-in or something like that, and it got to be something that we just didn't want to do. So even though it was making us great money, it was doing really well for us, we just decided that it was more work than we wanted to do. So we switched that and started to refocus on buying businesses, because we were learning that process along the way too. So, and then that's challenging as well. We bought a nightclub. We got a bad loan. Didn't research the loan properly. Got a bad loan and ended up losing over $100,000. And went from being like, we were making, at that point, we were just under making $1 million a year. And we went from making just under $1 million a year to having like an empty refrigerator, where the kids, we had to apologize to them because we didn't have enough food for dinner. Like, that was a massive shift. It was really hard and really painful to go through that, and to go through it as a married couple, and not to sink down to blaming each other, getting in, fights and things like that. It's super challenging.
And you still didn't quit. Wow. Let me ask you, when you was a squatter in London? In London.
Punk rock and a squatter.
Yeah. Would you think that you would be the person that you are today?
I'm still her. I'm still the punk rocker, and I'm still a squatter. Because even that life, I had wanted to move to London for years, and I went to a concert that I was a punk rocker for years, all through my teens and early 20s, and I went to London to a punk rock festival, music festival, and I met some people there, and they were like, "Yeah, you're cool. Oh, if you ever move over here, just come and live with us." And I went back home from the festival. I gave 2 weeks notice at my job. I told my landlord I was leaving at the end of the month. I took a paycheck and a backpack, and I moved back to London with that. I just decided, like, it's go for it, just go for it. Because I had spent probably 2 or 3 years before that trying to save up enough money and trying to decide where I was going to live and trying to research and study. And it just everything I did would just it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. So finally I said, look, it's happening. I'm going. This is the only way I can get it done. So this is how I'm going to get it done. I went over there with my backpack and my paycheck, and I thought that back then that the dollars doubled to go to pounds, and I found out that they half. So I had even less money than I thought I had when I arrived there. I took a taxi all the way from the airport to the house of the people where they were staying. I didn't even know that they were squatters at the time. I just knew that they had a place, and I figured I'll go there, I'll crash, I'll get a job, and I'll start contributing to the rent. And went there. The taxi took half the money I had. So so I already had half, because it was half what I was expecting. And then the taxi ride was half. So I arrived in London with a backpack and $50 to make a new life. And so thank goodness that it was a squat. Thank goodness. Back then, squatting was legal in England and whatnot. But, I just moved into the house. Nobody in the house spoke English. Everybody was from France. I had to pick up my French real quick, I just had to pivot and roll with, that's what it was. I wanted to live in England. I had an opportunity. And so I just took it and I went for it. And that's still the person I am today.
Wow. And that person is what not only is still the person that you are, but it led you to be the person that you are.
Yes, exactly.
Those experiences. Because even like what I heard that was consistent, like, listen, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
5-day challenge. I only saw 2 videos. I'm going for it. So it's this going for it mentality or energy that you have. Where does it come from?
That's being an entrepreneur. That's the divine just installed that in me.
Yeah.
I came with that program pre what do they call it when it's pre-downloaded?
Right.
Yeah. That's just part of my, and I don't say it's part of my identity in the sense of from an ego place that I built that as my identity. That is my identity because I've watched myself live and be and respond to life that way over and over, to where just as an observation, I see that is my identity. I am an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And so right now you've just purchased a spa.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's called Seraphine Wellness and Beauty. It's in Fort Lauderdale. If you live in Fort Lauderdale or you're anywhere near there, or you're going on vacation to Fort Lauderdale or Miami, definitely come there. It's a fantastic place. It's a 3,400 square foot spa that we offer massage therapy. We have a full service nail salon. We do Japanese head spa there. Oh gosh, what all services do we have? We do weight loss services and beauty therapy, body sculpting, and things like that.
Yeah. When you purchase these businesses, so immediately for me, I think about, okay, I have this business, automatically there's overhead, automatically there's rent, and there's staff. How do you overcome the fear and have the confidence to know you're gonna get it done?
Mm.
There's so much that fear holds us back so much.
Yeah. Well, the first important thing to mitigate fear is to actually do your homework, do your financial homework. You have to do financial due diligence because no matter how passionate we are and how much we want to go for it and everything like that, we have to balance that with clarity, with structure, with understanding. And if those are things that we don't know, then we get people on our team who know those things. So in the early days, we had a friend who was an accountant who was also in the investor group and, interested. So hey, if we need to understand the accounting side of the business, we're going to give it to you. If we buy this business, we'll give you a percentage. So we don't have anything to offer you, but we'll give you a percentage of the business. So people want, a stake like that. So get somebody like that. Get somebody who understands how to do the due diligence of a business. Get somebody legal on the team. The people who understand business law in the specific area that you're going into. So mitigate all the risks possible, and then go into it with passion. So it's never possible to mitigate each and every, but there are always going to be things that pop up. But by making sensible decisions, we can mitigate a lot of the risk.
That's powerful. Given your experiences in life, given the multiple businesses and everything you have going on, you authored some books. What would you say is the trait or the quality that you have within that makes you successful at all of these things?
Fearless creativity.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to express the art that I have inside me. And that has limits because, I will get up and, overthink a post and then never do it. But that certain things are not my area of strength. And that's important as well to realize where are our areas of strength and where they are not. Getting up and doing something like this every day, like what you do here, I've been struggling to do this for years and I haven't made it there. But getting up and saying like, okay, that business has $15,000 rent and we have to make 30 grand a month just to break even. Go for it. I'm down for the challenge. Let's see what we can do. Just getting into that level, just not being afraid to express whoever I am inside. Entrepreneur is going to bring out every single side of you that you have available, and also not being afraid to bring out the part of you that doesn't know. That's a lot of the fear comes from we're afraid to be faced with ourself who doesn't know, who's going to get it wrong. We're going to get it wrong. I'm okay with getting it wrong. That's part of what makes me an entrepreneur as well. That's one of the skills that makes me an entrepreneur is that I'm not afraid to get it wrong. I'm not afraid to get it wrong because there's a million ways to get it right. There may be 10 million ways to get it wrong, but there are a million ways to get it right. And if you just keep plugging at it, you're going to run into one of those ways.
Yeah. So I know that you've had mentees, you've led courses, you were a priestess. Is there a common thing within your mentees, for lack of a better word, that you see that holds them back?
Fear.
Wow.
Yeah. Constantly fear of what if I don't get it? What if it doesn't go out right? What if it doesn't work out? That's the absolute number one out of everybody I've seen. I've designed courses on spiritual resilience and money. But as I went through the journey myself and I started to design courses because I went through the trenches, like I went through some horrible stuff on my journey. And I thought if I can come back from these situations and from these moments, there's something that I have to give back to the people. There's something that I have to share so that if one person figures out, use this tool, try this thing, shift this mindset, and they can get into a better place, you can change the entire trajectory of your life just by making a few internal shifts. So they're worth making. It's worth going through that hard stuff. But going through those, the main thing I see stop people is always fear. They're just afraid to get it wrong.
Wow. And what would be your main message I know obviously this courses, it takes time, but if you have like one universal main message that you could share with us, what would that be about overcoming the fear?
Mm. It would be that there's no wrong. There's no way to get it wrong. All there, because when you arrive at the place where you're going and you look back at all the steps, every single step was something that was bringing you toward that. And it's like we lose faith in the fact that we can actually get to that place. And then we have knocks and bumps, and people aren't taught ahead of time that, hey, there's going to be knocks and bumps. There's going to be difficult times. There's going to be challenges. People get the internet gloss, that, oh yeah, try this and do this, do these 5 things and you'll have a business and an LLC and credit. And they just, run it down and make it look easy. It's going to be hard. Let it be hard and then keep going. Let it be hard. Understand that that's part of the path. The most important thing for people to understand is that there is no wrong. You can't get it wrong. If you have a goal and you continue to move towards it, you will arrive at the goal. You will arrive there.
Wow, that's powerful. If you can go back, like, given everything that you learned, everything that you've been through, if you can go back in time, and I'll let you choose where in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
That's a tough one to answer, because when I think about that, I go back to the places where I was at the really, really dark points in my life, like really dark places, feeling really deeply unloved, feeling so alone that I almost unalived myself just to not feel that pain. But because I came through that, and because I have found my place and found my value, I think I'm just sad for I'm sad for that girl, I'm sad for that woman who ever arrived to the point where it was that dark. But I would have told her that it's going to work out. Just keep on believing that it's going to work out. That's what got me here. That's what got me to the next place. And in the darkness, if only I had known in the darkness, I wouldn't have let it get that dark.
I know that one of your core messages is a message of gratitude. Can you speak more about that? And, just what it means to you and how people can use gratitude in terms of success or just living a better life?
Yeah. I actually that's a great question, because I've actually just done some work recently, part of my meditative work and my spiritual work, on understanding gratitude and how gratitude affects our journey of abundance. Because our capacity for gratitude is an energy that actually radiates from our heart. So, people trying to speak to the people who think it's woo-woo and stuff like that, chakras and the auras and things like that. These are energetic fields that are scientifically proven. So I'm speaking from a place of science. I'm a huge, science fan. I'm a huge fan of quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And there is an energy field around us that radiates from our heart. That's why it beats. There's anyway, let me not go, too far into that. But understanding that structure needs to be addressed and adjusted and shifted in order for us to be whole, in order for us to continue to regrow, the ability to continue to, like how the liver regenerates, our capacity for regeneration comes from this area. And so gratitude, when we stop feeling grateful, we start to fold inwards, and the heart becomes damaged and stiff and tight. It's like muscles, it's when we stop using them, when we don't stretch and we don't keep ourselves supple, we become tight. And then trying to stretch and fit anything new in there, trying to touch our toes, trying to reach for anything new is really difficult. The heart can't reach for anything new. It can't reach for the blessing of each life experience when it's like crunched, So gratitude is that. Practicing gratitude helps to keep that muscle open, keeps it flowing, keeps us understanding that every opportunity, everything here is really beautiful in the end, even the suffering, even the pain, because we've had the opportunity to exist. The fact that we've had the opportunity to exist and figure stuff out, to try along the way, to try anything, I've been to enough funerals at this point, and no matter how a person lived, when they're surrounded by somebody at the end, there's something that they gave away just by being themselves. And it can be a different thing that they gave to that person over there than they gave to that person there. Some of us are different in our marriage than how we are in our company. Some of us are different with our kids than how we are with our friends. We have an aspect, an angle that we give to everything we are, but we're bringing our real selves. And just that alone, just the opportunity for that experience is something to be grateful for. So if we practice gratitude, more opportunity, bigger opportunity, greater things become part of our space.
Yeah, I know for me, as someone who, and people are shocked when I tell them this, as someone who's actually very pessimistic, I always think about the worst things. And I understand that was a survival mechanism that I developed to survive my situation in life.
Yeah.
What gratitude does for me is it keeps me, and you'll appreciate this because you're a solution-oriented person. You mentioned that earlier. It keeps me solution-oriented. It keeps me in the game because I'm like, okay, this didn't happen, but I have this.
Yeah.
And I have this to look forward to. I'm being vague just to get to the point. So I think that that's also for me as an individual, being in the state of gratitude allows me to be solution-oriented because if I'm too I think being pessimistic, there's a place for it, right? Because you got to think about some like preparation that you mentioned about the businesses and strategizing and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it keeps me on that energy like, okay, it will work out. It can work out. And I have this. I may not have this, but I have this to work with. So that's why I think that, yeah, the gratitude isn't woo-woo. It's just a state of mind that we can all tap into.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? So like, I may not be driving the car that I want, as simple as this example may seem, but I have a car.
Right.
And then to think about it, some people don't have shoes. So it's like, okay, I'm doing okay. And I can still strive for the car that I want.
Right.
So that's where the solution oriented. And also too, like gratitude for me grounds me.
Yeah.
Grounds me. It keeps me respecting the people in my life and what I do have, so that's what gratitude does for me personally. So I understand what you mean about that stiffness of the heart.
Right.
Yeah, because when you're in gratitude, your heart does open up.
Yeah.
And it allows you to see and feel more,
Yes.
even when things aren't so great.
Right.
Yeah.
And it can make a tough situation seem much softer. It makes it much easier to flow with whatever's going on. I definitely think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And gratitude, which is something that I just kind of realized in my very recent meditation, as I was mentioning, that gratitude and compassion are two sides of the same coin. So both of those are love. So abundance is love. And abundance, like people think of money and wealth. Wealth is not money. Money is not wealth. Well, those are both reflections of abundance. And abundance is love. It's the capacity for love to emit from us and reach other people. And compassion is and gratitude. Like gratitude is when we give that out. Gratitude is like, wow, I pour this love from out of me onto the things around me. I'm grateful for everything that I'm feeling, touching, seeing, experiencing, connecting with. And compassion is that capacity to give that love for others, to like bathe them, to wrap them in acceptance, and to understand and just allow for their journey to be whatever it is.
Yeah.
In space.
As a woman, has it been challenging? Because they say entrepreneur and the business space is a very masculine space. So as a woman, has it been challenging to exist in that space?
That is a great question. It is extremely challenging and I think that the degree of challenge varies from woman to woman depending on their own level of internal feminine balance. But for me, I find myself to be like a pretty balanced, gender balanced, and I'm not talking about genders as in man and woman, but I'm talking about balance as in masculine and feminine, and these are like yin and yang. These are higher principles, not male and not man and woman. I have to stay so often in my masculine in order to get tasks done that if I don't back up from work and take the time to be in feminine flow, that I start to become rigid in what I'm doing. I start to take and hold masculine tendencies and not be able to put them down at the end of the day, and then that becomes a challenge for the marriage. It becomes a challenge with my daughters, like if they want the feminine side of me and I don't even have access to that. For example, if they come to vent an issue and they're just seeking some feminine receptivity, some nurturing, and I just start pouring solutions because I'm in solution mode, because I've been in solution mode all day as an entrepreneur, and they didn't want that. They just want like, hey, I'm sorry this happened to you. All right. And I'm just here for you. I'm holding space for your pain or for your issue, and I tend to forget to do that because I'm turned on to solutions and mitigating risk and things like that all the time.
Wow, that must be, it must be challenging to like, it must be challenging, and also you must be highly self-aware to be able to navigate these different spectrums of energy, when to turn it on. You may have to fire an employee that's kind of like maybe the masculine energy role. Like just being able to do that, it must be challenging to juggle all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. I think one of the things that I look for and that I lean on in marriage is to have the masculine presence there, because the masculine presence helps remind me to soften back up and be feminine. And so sometimes, because I'm in a masculine oriented position with the work that I do, I require a higher degree of masculine energy to help soothe me back into my feminine space at the end of the day, or when work is on pause. And sometimes that's challenging because if like, for example, if my husband feels or felt this level of masculine is enough, and in a regular life, in a regular setting, in the level of, because of the challenges we have with our business, the need for the level of masculine energy to help balance where I'm at and how I'm feeling needs to be this high. And so sometimes it's a challenge trying to find the words to ask somebody, hey, I need you to turn your masculine up, and not have it be about them or whatever level they're bringing, but it's about the situation. It's about the and again, in the sacrifices of what you're doing. Like, hey, I'm sacrificing some of my feminine energy in order to get this task done, in order to get this business built, because Seraphine is a brand. It's an empire. We're building an empire. We're not building one location. I'm not planning to work in the location forever. We're planning to open maybe 10 locations around the country. We're planning to have products, books, courses, all kinds of things like that, training for other estheticians, things like that. And so building something that big requires a lot of attention and focus. And
I really appreciate your honesty, because this podcast is called Raw Success, because this is the aspect of success that people don't see. Like, I noticed you were just on the cover of a magazine. It was like a financial magazine, I believe. Yes. Or entrepreneur magazine.
Entrepreneur magazine.
Indeed. And so like, not knowing you is like, wow, like she's on the cover of a magazine, she owns these spas, and they don't even know like what's going on like inside. That's what you're managing, what you're juggling, your marriage, your life, and all just all of that stuff. So I just really appreciate you being honest. This is profound wisdom that it's necessary to learn, because I feel like, especially in this day and time, you mentioned the fake gurus and social media, where people think like, you're going to be a millionaire overnight, or that it's easy. They don't even know the internal work and the juggling that exists.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that this is your individual experience, right? But just anybody, if you study success in general, which I have extensively, which is part of the reason we have this podcast, there's a lot of similar stories.
Yeah. And it's really powerful. And I really appreciate you for this platform, because the raw is the part that everybody's hearing about the success, but nobody's hearing about the raw. That part of the journey needs to be told. That story needs a voice. People think it's just a smooth ride, and then when the ride gets bumpy, they think, oh, I'm doing it wrong.
Yes.
And it's not, they're not doing it wrong. That's part of the journey. It's a required part of the journey. Nobody makes it through without it. If they get all the way to the top without those bumps, they lose everything. Those are the stories of the people you hear who are like, oh, I lost everything. I had $1 million and I lost it all. And then so they have to go back from scratch, because it's just integral to the journey to have these bumps, to have these learning.
Yes, and development.
Yes.
Because like your vessel has expanded. All of these different experiences has expanded your vessel to the point where you could take in more challenges, more experiences, more learning.
Yeah, exactly. And more abundance.
And Dion, that's right. Say that. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. You know, so you sort of like, how do I say? I don't want to say broke a myth, but you know what? I'll ask the question like this. There's this concept of one thing, right? And you as a serial entrepreneur, you've had multiple things going on. You have multiple things going on now. How are you able to do that despite the people saying that you have to focus on one thing?
That's where I go back to that. What did I say? I don't even remember how I said it before about my creativity, fearless creativity. And it's that I have been told many times, don't do too many things, don't be the jack of all trades and all that.
Spreading yourself too thin.
Right. And those are, spreading yourself thin is part of the process of self-development for an entrepreneur, learning how to be many things in many places at one time. And figuring out how to balance it, how to juggle it with the other things going on in your life. That is an integral part of being an entrepreneur. It's a required part. So it has to be developed or else you can't get to the end of the journey.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I love how the way you describe entrepreneurship, it's like almost like there's a curriculum to it.
There is.
Yeah. So, and I appreciate that because I'm facing some of those, hills and ups and downs that you mentioned, and even the spreading yourself too thin. What I was going to say for me also is I'm learning who I'm not by, I don't want to say trying out, because in the moment I'm not thinking I'm trying out. I'm thinking like, no, this is it.
Is it? Yes.
Yeah. And so all of those things have led me to where I am today, and learning like, okay, yeah, now I really like this. And so I do think there's some truth to it. You know, when you chase two rabbits, you don't catch either one.
Yeah.
I get it. But I think that there's another side, like you mentioned, where it is part of the curriculum, so to speak.
Exactly. And you don't know that you don't catch two rabbits until you try to chase them both. You have to learn.
Fire! Yes.
You have to feel that experience to know. You just have to.
Yeah.
That isn't one that can be taught or told. You have to try it. And then when it doesn't work, you just regroup and you decide which rabbit is more important to you. And then you can take that rabbit for a while and then realize it's not the one and turn back later on. You know, it's a constantly evolving process. It's a type of evolution. Entrepreneurship is a type of evolution. Some people do religious evolution. Some people evolve through family life. Everybody has their own path with that, but entrepreneurship and money are a form of evolution. They are a journey of evolution. That's a path.
I really appreciate you saying that, seriously. And I'm going to tell you, because I feel like for the past decade, I've been making a lot of mistakes. And I appreciate you saying that, because it's shedding light that those mistakes, these erroneous choices, you know, can be part of something that I'll benefit from later on.
Absolutely.
I just haven't got there yet. So thank you.
Even if the mistake comes in the reward of being able to pass that information along to somebody else, whether it's a course or whether it's just advice you give, because every conversation I've had with a millionaire that has come about with something with money, somewhere in the conversation, there's advice shared based on the experience that they've gone through. And they're like, yeah, you know, I've tried this, or I do that, or, you know, in the taxes, oh, I got burnt. I got paid so many taxes when I first started this business, or I've learned not to, you know, put this or to put this in a tax shelter. And just all along the way, there's so many things to know. It's not possible to know it all. If we try to know all of it before we start, we will not be there. We'll never get there. So the mistakes have to be part of the journey, and we have to be fearless about doing that. Don't ever take the mistakes as though there's something wrong with us. They're part of the journey.
You know, you mentioned relationship with money and whatnot, and the things that you were doing and how you gave it away. How can we develop a more positive relationship with money based on some of the spiritual principles that you learn, or just real life business and experience?
Both. Yeah. Weaving both of those together. Yeah.
You merge them both. Yeah.
Another fantastic question. The first thing to do is to question everything, question all of our mindset about money, to go back into the kind of things we've been told. Right now, we're in a shift period, but right now we still are in all of the movies. Like when we were growing up as kids, when we go back and look at those movies, the rich guy is always evil. The way that people talk about money.
And white.
Oh, money. Right. Exactly. They're always wealthy, white, and male. And that's
with a sweater tied around his neck.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Todd.
Treating somebody like trash.
Right.
Always, And so we have to unpeel all the layers of what we have been taught that money is, and money, things that are connected to money, what they are, and recognize that we have the power to, even if those things are true in some areas, and of course they are, there's the Todds out there, in the world, but we can bring us to money. We can bring ourselves to money, and we change money. Money is just a reflection of humanity and how we are all as a collective. So if we add ourselves to money, then money shifts because we're part of the reflection. If it's only the Todds who are getting the money, if they have all the money and the rest of us think, oh, that's evil and I don't want to be like that, we're not going to get it. So they will be the only reflection of money. But now money has been shifting, especially since the pandemic and everything. Now there's more entrepreneurs, there are more people building small businesses, and there are people, many more spiritual people, heart-centered people who are connecting with money and realizing that, hey, like money isn't actually evil. I thought it was, but it's part of us. Money is just a reflection of our hearts. And as the world changes, and there's still people rebelling. I know some people, even people who are close, who I know closely, who are still rebelling against money. But what they're actually rebelling against is that old school system of money, the old school people who are inheriting money, the old school people, the way that they got their money. There are people now, 6-year-olds on YouTube unboxing toys, and they're making money. So money isn't the same thing that we thought it was. And now the people who are still rebelling against money, rebelling against the old way of money, are still stuck. And it's those kind of things we need to start to break down our previous paradigms about money. That's how we first begin to develop a good relationship with money. Mm-hmm. And then we recognize that money is a tool for us, and the journey of knowing ourselves, and then just connecting who we are and what we want to do, and recognizing that money is a tool to help us be more of who we are. That's the way to develop. But the first thing we need to do is love money. There was a point in my journey where I was just like tapping every day, doing tools like EFT tapping.
But it's the root of all evil.
Broke is the root of all evil. Because we, and genuinely being broke is the root of all evil, because we don't love ourselves. We don't feel like we deserve. We don't feel like others deserve. We feel like resources are limited. You can't believe in divine, no matter what your concept of divine is. And because everyone's concept of divine, one of the things we share in common is that it's infinite. And so if something is infinite, and then we're going to go into like finite resources where there's a limited amount, or we all have the like less than somebody else or more than somebody else, or measurements that way, we need to shift that whole mentality and realize that we're able to tap into an unlimited amount of everything we need. We really are. We are enough. And the first part, just like the first part of my journey, was realizing I am enough. From the bed, can't even open my eyes, and my house is getting raided because I couldn't produce enough money for my family. That's because I didn't feel like I was enough. And as I go along this journey, I realized I really didn't feel like I was enough. I didn't feel like I was enough to be loved fully, and I didn't feel like I was enough to create wealth. Now there's a difference. Now that I know I am. At that time, I couldn't come up with $1,500 to cover our rent. And now last month, we made more than $30,000, and that's our, it's just a massive shift that it takes to get to that space. You have to love money. And I went through all the tapping. I love money. I love money. I love money. I love money, and money loves me, and doing all these things and just changing it. Our relationship with money is often reflected in our other relationships, our relationship with our children, our marriage, all of those kind of places. The way we are in one area is the same way we are in other places. And so if we have limited thinking in our marriage, we're going to be limited with money. If we have limited thinking towards how our children should be and being rigid with them, we're going to be like that with money. It's all a similar way.
Yeah. I think something that also hurt people who are striving to live righteous, I say that in quotation, is the whole, like the preacher that was taking advantage of the community and driving a Cadillac and like you said, just the old paradigm thinking of, the negative abuse of money and whatnot. Yeah, you're right. Definitely a different time, and we can shift our relationship with money.
Yeah.
And the value aspect is so real, because I was introduced with an opportunity, and which I took advantage of. But I remember in between transitioning, feeling like I didn't belong there. Almost like they called me for real.
Wow.
Like as if, obviously, they called me for that opportunity. Obviously, I qualified and I was worth it.
Yeah.
But inside, I was battling with, am I really worth it? It's almost like I didn't believe that I even attracted this opportunity because of who I was.
Wow.
Because I didn't belong in that space. And so, yeah, it's just, man, it's just so much internal work. And that's why I'm with you when you talk about the entrepreneur journey and how it's spiritual and it's a personal development journey as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of personal development, what is your favorite book and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. I have too many favorites. It completely depends on where I am in the moment, and as I evolve, then the favorite book evolves.
Same.
I have like foundational favorite books because I'm a science nerd. So The Holographic Universe was probably the first book that made me understand the quantum field and my place in it. And that has helped me understand things like law of attraction and things like that from a scientific perspective. Somebody gave me that book when I was working at a dirty dive bar in New York when I was 19. And he came in and said, and I was having a conversation, and he was like, wow, you're really smart. Why do you work here? And I was like, to get money, at the time. And he gave me the book, and I remember he wrote his name inside it, and I read the book and I was like, wow, this is what he thought of me. I'm just like some lady serving him a vodka and wiping the counter after he leaves. And somehow in the brief exchange, he connected with something in me that he felt like that was something that I would benefit from. And so that's probably, I would say, my favorite book, just because it was a book that was given to me as a gift for somebody who saw me. And it was back in a time in my life when not a lot of people saw me. I was a punk rock girl and all that stuff, and people couldn't see through the punk rock black girl and whatever it is that they projected of their own paradigm of who I was. And it was like he saw through me in just a few minutes. So I'll call that my favorite book.
Wow. 100 years from now, whenever you
when I'm still here.
There you go. What would you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, wow. Okay. I want to expand the capacity for heart-centered living in the world. I want to, by whatever means, some that I'm aware of and some that I don't even know yet, I want to leave behind a way for people to reach for love, like inside themselves, and to reach out to others, and to continue to expand love in the existence.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, Raven Alvarez, the serial entrepreneur, I really, really appreciate you coming all the way from Florida, taking time out of your busy schedule to just share and be generous with your experience and all of the wisdom that you've acquired throughout your years and all the hard work, blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you. How can people find you, your services, your shop, address, or phone number, whatever, all of that stuff? Tell people how to find you.
Yes. So find me at on Instagram. I'm Raven Alvarez, THEE, Raven Alvarez. My med spa Instagram is Seraphine Spa FL. And I'm also on TikTok, Seraphine Spa FL. I have authored books, so you can find me on Amazon. I just wrote a book recently, which we can discuss another time.
Yeah, part 2.
Yes. And it's a book about beauty and wellness, radiance, secrets of radiance. And what are all the ways to find me? Just come to the spa. Find an opportunity to get rest. Yes, also, seraphinespa.com. So let me see in that one. And then TIG, my investor, I do still buy and sell businesses. So even though I'm actively involved in Seraphine Spa, I also still am on the lookout for other businesses to buy and sell. So I have TIG-investments.com, and that's my investor website. You can find me on LinkedIn. And I'm Raven Alvarez on LinkedIn. And so those.
That's it. You heard it here, raw success. This sister came through and lit it up with dropping heavy gems. If you know anyone that's an entrepreneur, anyone that's been at the bottom and is striving to elevate, send them this episode, subscribe, and share. Let's get it. Peace.
All right. Yo, you lit it up, sis.
Fire.